honor of Black History Month, we give tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Now, the scene we're about to see comes from his sermon entitled, "Why Did Jesus Call a Man a Fool?" Now, it was delivered at Mount Pisgah Missionary Baptist Church in Chicago, Illinois, 1967. And King stated that this is the defining moment in his life. He had to realize that religion had to become real, and he had to know God for himself. Let's travel to that time. One day, after finishing school, I was called to a little church down in Montgomery, Alabama. I started preaching there. Things were going well in that church. It was a marvelous experience. Then one day, it was a year later, a lady by the name of Rosa Parks decided that she wasn't going to take it any longer. She stayed on the bus seat. Well, you may not remember it now because it's way back now, several years ago, but it was the beginning of a movement. 50,000 Black men and women refused absolutely ride the city buses, and we walked together for 381 days. That's when we got to learning to know the Negroes had to learn to stick together. We stuck together. We sent out the calls, and no Negroes rode the buses. It was one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen in my life. The people of Montgomery asked me to serve as spokesperson. As being the president of the new organization, the Montgomery Improvement Association became in a being to lead the boycott. I couldn't say no. So we started our struggle together. And for the first few days, everything was going well, but 10 or 15 days later, when the white people of Montgomery knew that we meant business, they started doing some nasty things. They started making nasty telephone calls, and it got to the point that some days more than 40 telephone calls would come in threatening my life, the life of my children, and the life of my family. And I took it in a strong manner at first. One night late, it was around midnight. And you know you can have some strange experiences at midnight. Been out all night with the steering committee, and immediately I crawled in bed to get some rest, to get up early the next morning and keep things moving. And immediately the telephone started to ring. I picked it up. On the other end was an ugly voice. That voice said to me in substance, "Boy, if you're not out of this town in 3 days, we're going to blow your brains out and blow up your house." I've heard these things before, but for some reason it started to get to me. Rolled over and tried to get some sleep, but I couldn't sleep. I was frustrated, bewildered. So I went into the kitchen and I started warming some coffee, thinking the coffee would give me a little relief. started thinking about many things. I pulled back on the philosophy and the theology that I just studied in the universities, trying to give philosophical and theological reasons why the existence and reality of sin and evil, but the answer didn't quite come there. Started to think about a beautiful little daughter who had just been born a month earlier. We have 4 children now, but we only had one then. She's the darling of my life. I come here night after night and I see that little gentle smile, and I sat there and I started that table thinking about that little girl. Thinking about the fact that she could be taken away from me any minute. I started to think about a beautiful and dedicated and devoted wife who was over there asleep. She could be taken from me, or I could be taken from her. And it got to the point that I couldn't take it any longer. I was weak. Heard something say, well, you can't call on daddy now. He's up in Atlanta, 175 miles away. You can't call on mama now. But you got to call on that something and that power that your daddy used to tell you about. That power that can make a way out of no way. So I found out that night that religion had to become real, and I had to know God for myself. And I bowed down over that cup of coffee. I never will forget it. I prayed out loud that night. I said, Lord, I'm down here. I think I'm right. I think the cause that we represent is right. Lord, I must confess that I'm faltering and I'm losing my courage. And at that very moment, I heard an inner voice say to me, Martin Luther, stand up for justice. Stand up for truth. Stand up for righteousness, and lo, I will be with you even until the end of the days. I tell you, I saw the lightning flash, and I heard the thunder roar, and I felt sin breakers dashing, trying to conquer my soul. But I heard the voice of Jesus saying, still to fight on. He promised never to leave me. He promised never to leave me. No, not ever to leave me. He promised never to leave me alone. No, not ever to leave me. He promised never to leave me alone. Sometimes I feel discouraged. I don't mind telling you about it this morning, but sometimes I feel discouraged. When I was in Chicago, I felt discouraged. Moving from Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia, I feel discouraged sometimes. Oh, yes, I feel discouraged. Living every day under the constant threat of death, I feel discouraged some days. Living every day under constant criticism, even from Negroes, I feel discouraged sometimes. Oh, yes, I feel discouraged and feel my works in vain. But then the Holy Spirit revives my soul. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the wounded soul. God bless you.